Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. I'm Paul Angelle, your host. Today, we're diving deep into the world of strategic alliances with Scott Overbeck. He's the mastermind behind Seacoast Consulting Group. Now, Scott has spent decades working with some of the biggest players in the game, uncovering the secrets to their success. Now, he's bringing that big league strategy to small and medium-sized businesses. Get ready to learn how to supercharge your growth, reduce risk, and unlock new opportunities through powerful partnerships. Let's get inappropriate.
Welcome to Inappropriate Growth, the podcast where we get real about the grind behind the glory. I'm Paul, your host, and I'm here to take you on a journey through the untold stories of business triumphs. We might raise some eyebrows, but it's all about the hustle and we don't fit the mold. Here we're talking about the kind of effort that doesn't just push the envelope, it shreds it to pieces. We're building a community where the norm is to defy norms. So buckle up, because we're diving deep into the beginnings that were anything but humble. The times when giving up seemed like the only option. We'll also dig into all of those wild, insane, and out-of-the-box strategies that led to massive growth. From growth hacks to best practices, this podcast will be fast, furious, and should be a whole lot of fun. Join us as we redefine what it means to grow and turn business growth into an art form. Welcome to Inappropriate Growth.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 7 of the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. I'm very excited today to have Mr. Scott Overbeck on. Scott, I hope I said your name correctly.
Indeed,
Welcome.
you did. Thank you.
And why don't you, to save me from having to do it, why don't you tell us where you are and how you got there?
So, hi, everybody, and thanks for having me. My name is Scott Overbeck. I'm the founder and principal of Seacoast Consulting Group, LLC. We're outside of, we're about an hour north, actually, of Boston, out on the New Hampshire Seacoast. And it's nice and I think 92 degrees here today. So, very atypical for being a short drive from Canada.
Just to jump right in, I'm curious. You got the Seacoast Consulting Group. What inspired you to start that? And backing up, your previous experience, how did all of that, all the things you did, how did that shape your vision for your company?
Yeah, so I spent just shy of 30 years in big corporate. I most of it was spent in banking, finance, and fintech or financial technology. So an interesting thing happens when you hit 50 years old is that you really start to evaluate your life and what you've done and what you want to do and all of that. So that's really kind of the big thing that happened. When I look back, I'd say, well, I've always really wanted to start my own company. And for varying reasons, it didn't happen. It was like, well, we'll do it later. I'll now, I have a family and, a lot of responsibilities. Once I hit 50, I just said, well, I need to do it. I really just need to do it now. So, the idea behind it was to say, well, I've learned a lot over, again, just shy of 30 years in big corporate. They do a lot of interesting things that small, medium-sized businesses don't do. So my big mastermind was, well, why don't I take a lot of the knowledge that I've learned and figure out how to kind of apply that to small to medium-sized businesses and teach them some things that maybe they don't know and maybe they can benefit from.
Okay, well, you mentioned turning 50. Can you share a pivotal moment? I mean, besides just the age, what was a turning point? This led you to turn your focus on consulting to these small and medium-sized businesses. What pivoted that?
Yeah, well, I will say that in big corporate, the bulk of what I did was consulting. It was in different ways. I mean, I got up to a senior VP role at a bank. I was traveling internationally for a while. I was consulting with um, companies big and small, mostly big. internationally. So I learned a lot. I learned how to communicate with all different levels of people, and to assess, evaluate, problem solve. And I liked that. I liked the interaction, and I liked the challenge. And I think there was a bit of a burnout, spending 30 years doing, I wouldn't say the same thing the whole time, but within a small sphere, very similar things, and just really wanting to branch out and try something different. So it's like, well, if I'm going to get away from big business, big corporate, what else is there? I said, well, small to medium sized business. And there's, of course, a lot of them out there, as you know.
Yeah. So I know it's been a relatively short time, but what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced? Once the realization of you're an entrepreneur now.
Certainly not getting a consistent paycheck was a big difference. That was a big one. Starting over, I think a real education for me. Like I said, I got up to a senior vice president role. I had people reporting to me. I had built my reputation. I had respect, right? And then you start over again. I made the decision. It was my choice to kind of go outside of um, kind of the zone that I've worked in for decades. So, I kind of chose that start over route, and I made it more difficult for me, for sure, right? Because you're having to build your, like, who are you? What do you do? What's your background, right? You're kind of having to prove yourself all over again. And of course, you want to do it quickly because you've started a business, and you want it to be successful. Like, we're not looking at years or decades to build it up like I did in corporate.
Well, what strategically, what have you found that works in that space in getting yourself ramped up, right? I mean, I'm sure most of your family likes to eat every single day, and all of your bills like to be paid at least once a month.
You do like that, yes.
Bridge that gap. What was your strategy?
Obviously some trial and error, but if I look back and just say, well, what really kind of got me to where I am now. I think having a very solid presence on LinkedIn was huge, particularly if you're looking to go, deal with other businesses versus consumers. Being able to communicate that with them is key, and the vast majority of them are on LinkedIn. This certainly isn't a plug for LinkedIn, but I tried all different types of things. Cold email, um, and that was a big one. But you're just trying to find them out on the internet, and go to their websites and do research. LinkedIn, it's all there. That being said, you have to present yourself in a way that people can very quickly understand what you do and what you've accomplished, and how they can interact with you, and what you're offering, and all of that. So that's been quite a bit of an education, learning how to kind of present myself, and what do I really offer, and how do I communicate that in a way that people can understand very quickly. So that was big, and then I would say that the second thing was really just identifying what my ideal client is. Who do I ultimately want to work with? Because when you spin up a business, your initial thought is, well, I'll work with anybody. If you've got money, I'll work with you. But that doesn't necessarily evoke the best case scenario. So identifying who that ideal client is, and really being able to come up with a way to get to that person. It's certainly a work in progress, but those were key for
All
sure.
right. Well, and I mean, and You mentioned in your career, you had some big wins, right? Adding $100 million in sales, boosting revenue streams by 250%. It's fair to assume you know what you're talking about. But can you share, I don't know, a specific success story that stands out to you? That's part of your pitch.
Specific success story. I mean, there's a lot of things in banking and finance that I'm not able to share due to non-disclosures and things like that. Yeah, but what I can share is, I had worked in mortgage banking for a while, and one of the things I did was I traveled around and kind of upskilled the loan officers, teaching them how to how to sell and how to leverage their network. So this is sort of when CRMs were really kind of coming into vogue, and there was a lot of opportunity for being able to leverage that. So I had a I had some great opportunities to be able to teach these loan officers how to kind of create strategic relationships with other companies, title companies, insurance companies, financial planners. And that really kind of, takes me full speed ahead to kind of where I am now, which is really teaching small and medium-sized businesses how to kind of create those alliances, those partnerships that can really move the needle. But in the case of the mortgage bankers, creating those relationships and then having a very defined process on how to go at them and how to follow up with them was huge. Those referrals, those those relationships that you build um, can make or break businesses. And in the case of the mortgage bank that I worked with, I mean, there's tens of millions of dollars in extra sales were extracted out of those relationships that were created.
Several times a week, I catch myself in a situation where am I, how would I advise myself? Am I practicing what I preach? Am I doing the things that I'm telling other people to do? Do you ever feel that experience?
Absolutely. When I look at my to-do list each morning, I catch myself. I'm like, okay, are these the highest value activities that I should be doing? Right? If I were consulting somebody to be the best version of themselves, would these be the tasks or the projects I have them work on? So yeah, it can be very humbling, when you sort of check yourself and be like, yeah, man, you know, um, as a small business owner, very few, if anybody, is telling you what to do. So you can pick the fun things all day long. Like yeah, I went through a time where I just wanted to, tweak my website. You can get lost in tweaking land. You're trying to, add things and make it more visually appealing. Is that really moving the needle? And in the case for me, the answer is no. So yeah, I check myself all the time.
The long-term goals for Seacoast Consulting. I mean, how do you plan to achieve whatever your plans are in 2025 and then maybe 5 years down the road? How do you see that?
Yeah, so the clients that I'm bringing on, I'm not bringing them on working with them for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, even a year, and then sending them on their way. Like these are long-term arrangements. So the types of alliances, the types of partnerships we're putting together, really in perpetuity. And as they start waning in terms of profit land, we're looking at popping in different replacement products and services. All that being said is, I'm looking for probably maxing out on maybe 50 clients that I'll work with, and then I'm looking to just work with those until I retire or they retire or they get sick of me.
So you're not looking for constant acquisition. You're looking to fill your plate with your avatar.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you see this whole consulting industry evolving? Because it's evolved a lot in recent years, but over the next 5 years, how do you see it evolving, and what role do you envision your company in that space?
Certainly from an evolution perspective, you know, I'm seeing that the importance of finding a niche and just being really, really solid in that niche. You're speaking to that niche, delivering value to that niche. Being a generalist is, I think that's dying on the vine. And and then also, I think going back to LinkedIn, I think that kind of hiding behind a website and being invisible, I think that's very much going away. I think your brand, who you are, um, how you present yourself, the types of things you do outside of work. People want to know about that person. They want to like you or dislike you, but they need an opportunity to make that call. So I think kind of coming out of the shadows and being real with people and not just hiding behind a website or a business name, I think is there's a huge shift in that.
You've got a professional life and you got a personal life, I presume. Given your active involvement in your community, in your church, and with your constraints of your family, how do you balance all of that in this early stages of a hopefully growing company?
Yeah, that's $1 million question. I'll say, how do you balance it? And then I'll take your answer. It's a constant struggle. It really is. I work long hours. Unfortunately, I work from home. I can kind of hole away up on the third floor of the house. I kind of got my own little, I call it a wing, but it's like a separate area, so I can kind of be invisible and then pop in as needed. My one teen daughter is homeschooled, so when she's in school, I can pop in and check in on her, quite a lot. And then the other one, when she comes home from school, try to be present at those times. But I will I'll profess that starting a business is very time consuming and very difficult and very stressful, and it's not very conducive for family. So you really need to force yourself to carve out time. And I'm a big time blocker in my calendar, so if it's not in my calendar, it's kind of pretty much not happening. So I try to specifically time block, times to spend. And like Wednesday is game night. Now I'll be the first to say that that hasn't really stuck yet, but it's in my calendar, and we're making some strides toward kind of making that consistently a game night. And the interesting thing is, we just bought a new board game over the weekend and played it. I have two teenage daughters, as I had mentioned, and like the way that their mindset changed when we just sat down and played a game all together without our devices and all that was really tremendous. Like it was like almost like if you want to reset with your family and reconnect, like get away from the devices, just sit down and do something that you can all kind of focus on, whether it's a board game in our case, or going for a walk, or we go out to the pool and float around in these 90-degree days. Something that just kind of pulls you together. It's amazing how powerful that is. So
If you're talking to aspiring entrepreneurs, people that have that 50th birthday, have that existential crisis, and they want to just test out the parachute, become an entrepreneur, what advice would you give aspiring entrepreneurs that we're not only looking to make a change, but they want to make a significant impact in their industry?
mhm. Yeah, so Certainly having a plan around, how you're going to tackle that. I mean, back in the day, when I was at university, it was you need a solid business plan, and you need to have people in suits and ties who are going to give their blessing on it. You don't really need that anymore, but you really need to walk through the process, a very methodical process on what you want to do, how you're going to accomplish it. Do you have the resources to do that? And by the way, the resources isn't just money. It's, as you know, it's time. Right? That's the most valuable resource any of us have. Uh, I don't think anybody really realizes that until they become an entrepreneur, or perhaps a parent. But certainly as an entrepreneur, I'm like, I am so limited on time. It's just killing me. If only I had more time. Well, you know what? I could make $10 million. I can't make more time. So really having a plan on how you're going to tackle it. Like, who is your ideal client avatar? How are you going to get to them? Are you going to do the marketing? Are you going to employ somebody to do the marketing? What does that look like? Are you going to be able to scale? If you get 50 clients tomorrow, can you handle it? Or are you going to crash and burn, and then everybody's going to hate you and you never get a client again, right? You need to have a plan, contingencies, a plan around everything. And once you have that, then it's a matter of just going through and implementing it. And in some cases, you could even start doing that while you're still at your day job. I mean, they call it a side hustle now. I mean, side hustles have turned into full-time gigs for more than a few people.
And that's not some bad advice. When you talk about the side hustle, I fell into a referral source, and that was SBA lenders. And SBA lenders, one of the requirements to get an SBA loan was it was a specific credit score, but the biggest problem they had, people had the credit score, they needed a business plan. Part of my process was creating a business plan. So,
Sure.
and my business plans were thorough enough to where SBA checked the box. Yes, this company does have a business plan. But they say the biggest thing that kills them is that people go to get their business funding after they've jumped out of the airplane. They've left the company, and the company's paying you on the 1st and 15th every month. That's what the banks are looking for. Now, once you get approved for the loan, they say, then that loan revenue has gotten your business to where it's producing enough income to pay all of your bills. You can leave your prior job and use the revenue from the business to pay back the SBA loan. But people have jumped, their side hustle starts showing money. Well, that 6 months of revenue doesn't get you approved for a loan.
Yeah.
I mean, and I talked to 100 SBA local kind of lenders, and none of them would ever advise leaving your main income source before applying for the loan. And that's not intuitive. That's not something that people think necessarily. It's the side hustle idea is excellent. Only make sure you're not violating any kind of competitive agreements you may have signed with your current employer, because that could get expensive. But if you've got a side hustle and you're okay to do it, and the side hustle is growing, and you need funding, secure the funding while it's still a side hustle.
That's a good point. I think a lot of people that are in a side hustle, they look at the growth pattern that they've seen and they extrapolate that out and say, well, it's just gonna continue on exactly what it is, and project that. It might, and it might not. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But then I also think out on social media that people that are entrepreneurs, they paint, just like in social media, you're only seeing people on their vacations and with their new car, and, not their broken down jalopy, right? They're painting the best of it. So people are seeing, well, man, they did it, and they did it, and he did it, and she did it, and why can't I do it? They make it seem so easy.
I have friends that I don't want to say they're degenerates, but they're kind of into gambling. They like to gamble a lot. They like to bet
Yeah,
on sporting events. They like to go to casinos, and they have no trouble remembering vividly the times they won. But they don't seem to have any memory of the losses. And I don't know anybody who doesn't have more experience losing than winning. It's just
right.
the casinos never go broke. They just don't. They always win in the end. And I think that that's part of it. We see the wins because when you don't have financial metrics that you can use to create either financial controls or make based, you know, decisions grounded in available revenue, that's when businesses fail because a lot of entrepreneurs, if you're a true entrepreneur, chances are you're not the best solution to do your books. Because if you've got a true entrepreneurial spirit, you probably didn't make straight A's in accounting. That's someone that's
Very
devoted to that. And when you talked about earlier, your highest, best use of your time, if you're not an accountant, it's not bookkeeping. It can't be because you can get the best bookkeeper in the world to do all your work for under $1,000 a month, but it would take you hours to do. And if you can't make $1,000 in several hours, then maybe this business isn't going to make it.
It's very well said. Yeah, one of the things that you said made me think about, back in the day, they used to talk about like an overnight success, if that was like, I was specifically thinking in music, but people talk about an overnight success and in business as well. And in every single documentary I've ever watched on like a movie star or a famous singer or a business person, typically business owner, like it was never an overnight success. Like that's the big brushstroke. Like that's jumping to the end, but you're skipping the beginning and the middle is where you get all the failure and I'm not good enough for this and what in the world did I do?
An overnight success, if you're starting from zero, and like you said, if you got 50 clients tomorrow, you'd gladly engage them all, but what are you going to do? How are
Yeah,
you going to fit that into your calendar? All of a
yeah,
sudden, all your good intentions with the family, all that's going out the window because you're not equipped to deliver that. And an overnight success is almost a guaranteed failure.
yeah. And a perfect example of that is somebody who wins the lottery and then you look at where they are 5 years from now and in a lot of cases, most cases, they're back where they started or worse because they weren't equipped, they weren't ready for it. So you got to go through those pains, those trials, those tribulations, feeling like a loser, feeling like you made the wrong call before the success comes.
Yeah. My grandfather worked in a bank and he was like the financial brain. We all looked up to him because, he'd roll at the bank. And I remember he told me, he said, if they took, see, I guess a teacher had told me that like 5% of the country has 90% of the money or some stat like that. I'm making
Mhm.
it up, something like that, something unreal. And I was in class. I remember everybody talking about, oh, well, what if they just took all the money and gave everybody the same amount? Everybody would have everything they need. And my grandfather was like, yeah, it'd actually be great for business, but fast forward 2 years and all the rich people would be rich again and all the broke people would be broke
Yeah,
again because that's too the reward is too fast. It's not earned and it's not appreciated and you don't keep it. It's not
yeah,
sustainable. If you're
it's,
growing at a regular clip and it's sustainable and you're prepared for it, you don't regress. But overnight success is, to him, it was doomsday. It was the
yeah,
worst thing that
you
could happen.
nailed it. Yeah, absolutely.
What exactly is next coming up for you? You mentioned that you're active on LinkedIn. Do you have any kind of campaigns or promotions or things that you're working on specifically that you're about to roll out?
Yeah, so I'm about to. I partnered up with a coaching company to give me a little guidance on some best practices around um, outreach. So um, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn in terms of outreach, but the cold email outreach is something that that I need a little help on. So I'm going to be kicking that off probably next week sometime. So and that's one of those big things on my list, to get ready for that. But I'm in the process of signing a new client today, and that's going to be a ton of work. And when we talk about how one phone call, one meeting, you never know what it's going to turn into. Like this client has potential of like snowballing into like another 10 or 15 clients very quickly.
Those are the best kind.
And so it's great, and it's a huge body of work, but, balancing it out and then just saying, okay, so do I really need to do the email outreach? Am I going to overwhelm myself? Do I just create a waiting list? What does that look like? There's a million things that are going around in my noggin all the time.
Scott, I really, really appreciate it. I love talking with you. This was great.
Yeah, same.
I want to thank you for being on Inappropriate Growth. And I want to remind you and anybody that's listening or watching that if you're going to grow, chances are strong that you're probably going to have to do something inappropriate. Till next time, thanks so much.